Good afternoon. I'm Margie Jones. I'm the Dean of the Collins College of Hospitality Management. Welcome. I hope some of you got the chance to be part of the series last week. Yes?
Yes.
Are you learning more today? Yes. Okay. So it's my pleasure to introduce Susan Liston, who is Senior Vice President of Growth for Aramark Destinations. And she is here today to present kind of the very specific lens of Aramark Destinations in this session and a little bit more about herself in this session. I want to take a minute to thank Margaret Bailey, who is an alumna and also a member of our Board of Advisors. Margaret has spent her career in outdoor hospitality, kind of the end of it, and she's been the champion of this cause. And you have her to thank for working very diligently with the college administrative analyst, Jake Fry, who I also want to recognize, who's kind of made all of this happen for you. So please help me welcome Susan, thank Margaret and Jake, and thank you for being here.
I said this to each of the classes. The reason I'm here is to be a link between you and the campus and the outdoor hospitality industry. So when I say my name, Margaret Garska Bailey, you have my email. If you need it, I'll write it on the board. But if you are interested in this sector of the hospitality industry, my job as a former alumni and board member is to help you prepare yourself to apply for jobs in this industry. So I am a resource. Please leverage me. I will write my name on that board again, and I'm here to help you. And now I have the distinct privilege of passing. I'm not going to pass this. You have your own mic. Yeah. Just a professional colleague. I've known her, I think, for at least 10 years or whatever. I met her in Arizona. We were working for Arizona State Parks on a project. And then we've been professional colleagues because the work that I used to do was important to Susan's work. And I think you're going to find a very interesting perspective on the hospitality, specifically outdoor hospitality industry. And I would say I went around the room and to find out what you're all interested in. And I can tell you right now that you can find your interests in this company doing something if you want. So it's yours.
Well, thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Dean, Margie. Appreciate that kind introduction. And it's nice to see so many faces I recognize from this morning. So thank you for coming back to see us. And you might hear a couple of things that you heard already this morning, but I know we have some new faces in here. And I actually dressed up for all of you because I don't typically wear this attire to work. I wear really kind of like what you're wearing today, very comfortable, casual. We're out in the parks. That's one of the benefits of working in the outdoor hospitality industry is you don't have to wear a suit. So if that's not your thing, then you're going to love working in outdoors. I always say you look like you walked out of an REI store when you work in outdoor hospitality. So again, my name is Susan Liston. For those of you I didn't meet earlier this morning, I'm the Senior Vice President in Development for Aramark Destinations. And that's just a big title for saying that I just lead our effort to grow our business, to sign new contracts, and take good care of our customers. So I live in Phoenix, Arizona, so I'm a neighbor of yours. I actually lived in California for about a decade as a child in LA and lived all over the country, but primarily in the West. And so it's really, really my honor to be able to share a little bit more about outdoor hospitality as part of the speaker series. So thank you again to the Collins College and our sponsors of the series, and to Margaret for connecting me with you. So again, apologies for some of you who maybe heard this earlier this morning, but I'll go through this quickly. Just a little bit about the weaving path I took to get into outdoor recreation is I started many, many years ago working for Marriott Hotels. And at the time, there weren't really a lot of great hospitality programs out there. There was Cornell, if you've heard of that, and a handful of others. But and I know even with Collins, that was under the business school. So it's really great that colleges and universities have stepped up to create these great hospitality programs. So I kind of tripped and fell into it a little bit. But Marriott was a great foundation for me. I did a management development program with them where I worked in every single part of the hotel. I did housekeeping, I did catering, food and beverage, the front desk, and then ended up deciding that I wanted to be in catering and conference services, which, in hindsight, I was like, wow, you work a lot of hours in that field, and I was a wedding coordinator. I did all of those things. And, but it was a great experience. And along the way, these little yellow bubbles at the top, those are a time in my life where I decided to have children. And so between 91 and 97, I raised a family while at the same time growing my career, because I was in hotel sales with Marriott, progressed into several regional and director positions. I had the opportunity to be a hotel general manager, and that is a great career path, but it wasn't the one for me. So I chose to stay in more of the sales, marketing, and revenue management discipline. But I point out the fact that we're all a whole person and a human being as we come into these jobs, right? And the hospitality business is fantastic, and especially if it's a passion of yours. But we're also, could be raising humans. We could be taking care of other members of our family. And so I point that out, that it is a matter of balance. And I was fortunate enough to have family and a strong partner who actually stepped up so I could continue to grow my career. And I said this morning, it's very gender fluid. Shouldn't be assumed because you're the female head of household that, you have to stay home and take care of the children. We were able to create that balance, and I'm very grateful for it. So as I was raising my children, I was also growing my career. And then a very pivotal point of time for me when I kind of pivoted towards the outdoor recreation business was when I started my business just in about 2009. And one of my clients that I had at the time, I did this for 3 years in consulting. I worked for Marriott Hotels, but I also worked for a place in California called Asilomar Conference Grounds. And they're actually on the board out here at your college. Asilomar is this beautiful location on Pebble Beach and is part of the California State Parks Network. And they were a client of mine. And that's how I became aware that, there's this big company, Aramark, that happens to be in the outdoor recreation business and operates several thousand lodging rooms and does food and beverage and all these things. And I literally had no idea that this was an actual business that where I could transfer my hospitality skills and be, very effective. And so in 2012, they recruited me and they said, Susan, we'd like you to come work for us full time. And that was a scary decision. Someone asked me earlier today, what made you make those decisions in your career and those pivots? And I can stand up here right now today with a lot of confidence saying, I'm glad I did it. I came out on the other side. But at the time, it was really scary to think, okay, I'm going to pick up my career and move it into this field. But I am so glad I did. And I actually took a step back in terms of title, became an individual contributor, and really learned the business. And now 11 years later, it served me very well. I've had 2 different promotions within the company, and I've been able to grow our business. So we now have over 38 parks related contracts, and it represents a tremendous amount of business for our company. But more importantly, it serves to provide great jobs for individuals like yourselves and others that have interest in this business, that you can actually spend your entire career working in outdoor recreation and tourism, if you so choose. And you can go back and forth too. We have some people that have worked at Ritz-Carlton, Hilton, other great brands, come to work for us. And then maybe at a point in their life where, they don't want to work in a more remote location and they can go back into that industry. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's your choice. And so I'm here standing before you today just to say, this is an interesting opportunity I think you should take a look at. And for those of you that were with us earlier this morning, you've got a little taste of that. But I know there were a lot of questions about, what you can do in terms of internships and other things. And the last thing I'll point out just on this chart was volunteerism. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the employee resource groups and how important that is to our company and to the individual jobs we do. One that's very important to me is Empower, which is our women in leadership positions within Aramark. And so I work in mentoring many women that are growing their career and are, coming into the business and chair our chapter in Arizona. So that's of importance to me. And then IAC is the top 1% of conference centers around the country and serve as the president of the board for the Americas chapter. So again, just a way to kind of in a position to give back and something that's really aligned with who I am and what I want to do with my free time. So any questions about kind of the ups and downs of the careers, the choices I made? You have the amazing opportunity to take a more direct path, certainly into outdoor tourism if you so choose. But just wanted to share that it doesn't have to be direct. It can be like my life was. But you can also go right from a program, the great program like Collins, and go right into outdoor recreation. And so I want to talk a little bit about Aramark in general, but I'm going to drill down into what we do. I think Margaret said it well this morning when she said, the great thing about a company like Aramark is that you can have your entire career in the company and work in different kind of chapters, if you want to call it that. So destinations is in outdoor tourism, but there's other areas like hospitals, colleges, universities, sports and entertainment. That's always the one that everyone's excited about, is go work for an NFL team, right? And you can do that and then work and transfer over. And a lot of people, I actually, when I joined Aramark, there were many people that had already 30 years with the company. So I was the new person joining. But that's kind of the basically the world of Aramark. But I want to drill down just a little further into, I think I'm going to skip this in the interest of time, drill down into what we do in destinations. And we just rebranded about a year ago. We've been Aramark Parks, we've been Aramark Leisure, which no one knew what that was. So destinations, I think, is a better kind of overall description of what we are. So I mentioned we have 38 national parks and state parks. We're the single largest concessionaire partner with the state of California, which we're really proud to serve Californians and visitors in the area with that. And then we have these 20 hotel conference centers that they're really training centers that are serving corporations and universities and helping them train their teams. And actually the single largest operator of training facilities for the Postal Service. Believe it or not, there's a lot of training that goes on delivering the mail, right? And all the equipment to do that, if you can imagine. And then the 9 landmark attractions. Does anyone remember from, if you were in one of my sessions this morning, I talked about Pikes Peak at 14,000 feet. It's a 14er mountain. And can anybody remember what the top selling item is and why people come from all over the world to get that food? Right here. Donuts. It's the donut recipe, right? It's a special recipe. It's over 30 years old. Secret recipe on how you can make donuts at 14,000 feet, which is pretty difficult to do. So we have a special machine for that, and people love the donuts. So if you get a chance, if you're in Colorado Springs, go to Pikes Peak. And the thing we're really proud of there too is, because sustainability is so important to our company, is that we have the highest level of green restaurant certification at that location. And that's based on the overall operation, what we do with waste management, and how we conduct our business there. And then we align with our client, with the city of Colorado Springs, as a living building, which again is a very difficult certification to receive. There's only one in the entire state of Colorado and just a handful around the country. So we've had the CBS Morning News. We've had a lot of PR exposure for this facility. So we're really proud of it. And that's just part of the landmark attractions. So I guess what I'm saying here is that you could do everything from being in that type of location and utilize your career in hospitality there to being in a park. And then these are just some of the bonuses, right? I don't know if anyone here enjoys doing any of these activities. I sure do. And the beauty of it is you can have these experiences as you're taking care of guests and visitors, right? You could run a rafting experience or a restaurant that's associated with many of these outdoor activities. We even have boats that seat 300 to 400 people for these beautiful dinner cruises on the lakes. And we have a fleet of about 300 houseboats at our Lake Powell location, where we have chefs and beautiful restaurants. A lot of people don't realize there's Five Diamond restaurants in these parks with white tablecloth service. And so we need expertise like what you're all learning to do, whether your focus is food and beverage and culinary, or and I'm going to show you some of the other functional areas. But all of those attributes come to play in providing best-in-class hospitality in these locations.
So one of the things I said in the class was, and Susan alluded to this, but
in essence, some of these positions, you are literally being paid to quote unquote play. You could be like the snowmobile facilitator and guide and taking guests out on it. And then when you're done with your day, you can go cross country skiing, you know. And so if you are an outdoorist, these are some of the things that you could be responsible for overseeing and or managing, like a whole bike fleet or, you know, a whole, I don't know, got horseback riding up there. That's something that you have in a couple of your places, but that's one of the things that is available to you in this industry, to be in settings that are beautiful and potentially be managing or operating or facilitating outdoor experiences as well.
That's right. And then doing that in your free time too.
Yeah,
so because literally could be outside your door if you live inside the park, which many of our employees do that. And then these are some of the career tracks. This probably will look familiar to you because it aligns similarly to many of the major, you know, hotel brands and Disney and others. But, you know, I don't know if anyone wants to raise their hand and tell me if based on where you're at in the program, are any of these functional areas of interest to you? Is anyone thinking, you know, I want to be in human resources or talent acquisition, or I want to be in sales and catering or accounting? Anyone have a specific right here? Accounting. That's right. We talked about accounting. And it's interesting, but, you know, there's a lot of money that comes through these parks. So every location, and there's certain requirements in reporting because you're working generally with a government agency. So our reporting requirements are, you know, very strict. And so we have multiple accounting positions, both in the parks and then also in other centralized locations. We have a big hub in California, in Fresno, actually, where we have a large accounting office and centralize a lot of our park accounting goes through there. So again, this and one little bracket off of here that I failed to add, but I talked about earlier, is sustainability. And we do a lot of hiring of college graduates right into those programs because there is a sustainability manager at every single one of those 38 park locations that is responsible for kind of overseeing the green team for the property, but also making sure that we're communicating correctly with our guests and taking care of these natural resources that we're really, you know, privileged to operate in. So if that is of interest to you, if that's part of kind of your ethos in terms of caring for the environment, another really great opportunity to serve in that capacity. And this really is about service. I was talking to somebody after one of the sessions, and, you know, I think you all know this being in the hospitality program, but, you know, we're really serving our visitors and guests that are in these environments. And that's kind of the privilege. And I think it's kind of the attitude that you have to have coming into it. But there's such a much bigger return, I think, to us as employees too. And, you know, the give back that goes both ways. And then last but not least, before we get into some of the career opportunities, I wanted to talk about the employee resource groups. So it's very important to Aramark that, you know, we are as inclusive as possible and focus on the unique diversity of the employees that choose to come, because you have a choice, right, of who you want to work for. I think in the workforce and the type of degrees that you're going to leave with in coming out of this program, you're going to be a very valuable asset to an employer. And we want to be an employer of choice. And so we look to support all of our employees in the areas that are important to them. And no one has to just pick one of these 10 resource groups. But if there's any alignment that you have an interest, you're encouraged to be a part of it. Like I said, with Empower, it's the oldest employee resource group in all of Aramark. And it was the one focused on women in leadership. And that's a personal passion of mine. And so that's the one I choose to align with. But I also serve with a chapter leader who is part of LEAD for our African-American employees, and she's a leader there. So you can serve in multiple capacities. But just want to make sure you're aware that this is a broader page, and I think very important, because sometimes when people look at big employers like a Marriott or an Aramark or a Disney or something, you think, wow, big corporation, what is it going to mean to me and what's important to me? This is how we bridge that, I think, in becoming, and that way you have this smaller network of people that that you feel like you're part of a community. Okay. Any questions on that?
Can you talk what the different groups are? Like what's Empower, what's Impacto?
Yeah. Well, young professionals is pretty obvious. That would not be me. That would be all of you. So young professionals are typically under the age of 40 years old, and they go to a lot of the baseball games, all the fun, cool stuff. And then we have let me start on the other side. The dietitians, Empower, I talked about. Impacto is for our Hispanic community. We have LEAD, which is part of our African American community. We have Pride, which is for our LGBTQ plus community. We have Rising Sun, which is for our Indigenous peoples and Native American. We have Salute, which is prior military or could be spouses and significant others of military for Salute. Synergy is for the it's kind of like all religions, right? That are encompassing. So no matter what your religion is, but if religious preference and practicing that is important to you, to be part of that. And then we have Thrive, which is for people with disabilities or opportunities there. So, and then back to young professionals. So it's again, maybe doesn't cover everyone and what you're looking for, but it tries to be as inclusive as possible. And there's always the opportunity to start a new resource group too. So a couple of these are newer, like Synergy, the one on world religion. All right. I know some of you are only here for this, probably not to hear me talk. So you really want to know about this. So I promised that we would talk about it today. And I do have my cards up here too. So if you want to follow up with me afterwards, we can. So there's basically 3 different entrances into jobs with the company. So I'm going to talk to you about the more official ones here, but then there's a path similar to Daniel Villanova's, who you met this morning, right? So the S2L, or Step Up to Leadership program, this is a summer internship that is an official paid internship that you apply for and is going to be posted on our career site, right? And this is going to be from your junior to senior year bridge. So you need to wait for that period, or if it's already passed, and I'll talk to you about the next opportunity. But that is specific, okay? It's not the only way to be employed, but it is very specific for that time period. A2L, Accelerate to Leadership. This is if you're an intended graduating senior, this is when you can go into this program. And the neat thing about it is that it's guaranteed 1-year employment, management, so you get a salary, you also get relocation, and you are guaranteed to work in at least 3 different businesses during that time. And you can kind of specify what you want that to be. And then after that, based on a successful completion, you are offered a permanent job within Aramark. So right now I work in Phoenix with this amazing woman who was in this program. She came to us from the University of Alabama, and she worked for a year in the A2L program, and she was so successful in our marketing department that she has now been offered a full-time job there. And so she's going to stay in Phoenix with her boyfriend, and she loves it. And it was really a great time for her to get to try it, see if she likes it, and then for her manager to also make sure that it was a good thing for the team, right? So it doesn't always work out that way. Maybe someone says, you know what, I don't want to do this, but I want to go over and work in sports, or I want to go work in, another part of the park division. That's fine. But that's the great thing about the program, is at least you're guaranteed a full year's employment with a salary, with relocation. And so it really gives you a nice jump start on your career, and you get that experience with Aramark. And then you don't have to stay past that. So if you want to go do something else, certainly can, but you're at least guaranteed that. So those are the 2 official programs. And in this slide deck, there's a kind of a double click down into more information that will be posted right on the website. So if you want to, and there's some live links there, so you can click into that if you want more information. Then I want to talk about the third way that you can become employed with our company. And that's what Daniel shared. And that's if you know that you would have interest in coming to work as in summer employment, seasonal employment, when you're not in school, then you can apply for a seasonal job. And it'll be very specific on our career site how many months the commitment is. And we intentionally try to hire people that are in school to come help us in the summer, because most of our locations, it peaks up like this where we need more employees between the months of the end of May to September. Actually, because of, climate change, it's warmer now into September and October. So those are now becoming, busy. So we're always looking for people to help stay through September and October, but I know that doesn't work for students. So we understand that. We'll work with your schedule. But if you do want to do that, then you can apply for a seasonal job and interview just directly with the company. And Margaret offered she can be a great advisor for that, so that you're kind of in tip-top position to be prepared for an interview. You do need to submit an application. Depending on the job, you may have to submit a resume, but most of it's an application. And we also we use AI chat now, where there's a person that will chat with you after you apply. It's pretty cool. You can actually text, and you will get a text message to be like, hey, you applied for this job, we'd like to set up an interview with you and all that. So we're using that to speed things up, because we know, right, when you make a decision, you might be getting 2 or 3 other offers of interest. And so we need to be kind of, again, employer of choice and someone that gets back to you quickly. So we're really trying to speed that up. And again, Margaret can be a great resource for that. But that's the other way to try it and see. And based on your age, there's just, a few positions in food service, obviously, with serving alcoholic beverages and so forth. There might be some limitations on your age. But other than that, if you're over 18, you can work in this park environment or for these attractions. And so I would encourage you, it's really the best way. If you have interest, and Daniel answered some of your questions for those of you that were in our morning session about the fact that, yes, you're living away from your home and family for that period of time, but you create this new tribe and network of people from all over the world that you might not otherwise would have met, right? And you're all kind of in that same living condition. So we said it's a little bit like summer camp / college feel, and a lot of people of, various ages. The other thing I will say is that we have workers on the other end of the spectrum that are, Margaret, my age or older, that have loved coming to the parks all their lives, and now they're retired. And so we give them free RV camp spots, and they bring their camper, or we give them, married housing, and they come together and work in the parks together as partners, and work in the parks and have the best time. So we kind of have both ends of the spectrum.
So 2 things. Can you talk a little bit about housing and food
Mm-hmm.
for parks? And then can you also talk about, we have some freshmen here would there be first job opportunities that would be available to folks? A lot of times the freshmen are like, well, I don't really have that much work experience. How do I make myself attractive? So can you talk about those 2 things?
Sure. Okay, I can do that. So food is provided 3 meals a day in the parks where you would be living in the parks. Okay. And then if you're not living in the parks, there's usually 1 meal per shift, very similar to if you work in restaurants or hotels here. So that is either, depending on the park location, it's included at no cost or at a very low cost. Daniel mentioned to you he's paying $10 for the full day, and it just comes out of his paycheck. Same with housing. Housing is a very reduced rate. And in some cases where we have a more difficult time maybe hiring, it might even be included as a bonus. If you stay for the entire season, you will get a credit back on your housing. So just think about that. You keep all the money essentially that you make for that time period, and that's all after taxes coming back to you. So we have people that will save thousands of dollars over the summer that they can then boost to pay for their education or pay for their housing, later in the fall. Or if it's post-graduation, it can give you a jump start on, putting a down payment on a house or whatever your other financial goals are. So that's another great reason to consider it, is that can really save you a lot in terms of living expenses. And it is a requirement in all of our contracts that we offer, great housing options and food and beverage. So did I answer that question? Okay. Okay. And then the entry level. Yeah. So I know someone had asked a question, raised their hand. They said, oh, we just assumed that, one of the parks that's not too far from you, or at least in California, Yosemite would be full because it's super popular, right? And I said, no, absolutely not. It takes over 1,000 employees for us to run that park. And many of those are seasonal. So every year we're hiring people just for the summer. And for freshmen, you still would be considered. And it's something where you just want to make sure that you have any work experience you have listed on your resume. But there are entry-level jobs where you don't have to have a significant amount of experience. I will say it helps if you've, worked at Chipotle or you worked at Burger King or something like that, put that on there. So it shows that you at least have some prior work experience, but you don't have to have years and years, and you don't have to have been a food service supervisor or anything to be hired. You have to just, want to work hard, be in that environment. And that's not for everybody. Some people want to be in the city. And so there are some trade-offs there, but again, that's why I encourage you to really try it for a summer experience and see if you like it.
I'm just going to add the other thing that you're not thinking is a skill, but if you like rock climb or camp or hike, those are things that you would actually put on your resume, like, enjoy hiking, et cetera. And then the only other thing, Susan, go back for the international students. Can you talk a little bit about eligible to work and then also Aramark International?
Yes. Yes. So we do have an international division of our company, and the largest two areas of employment are in Northern Europe and in South America. But I think we're up to 30 some countries right now that we do business in. And so we do work with, depending on what your visa situation is, we can work on sponsoring. I would say most of those sponsorships are in management roles, unless you already have maybe dual citizenship or something like that. And we do some very interesting things. We do everything from oil rigs in the Gulf. We do the mining camps in Chile. We're the single largest employer there. And then in Northern Europe, we have everything from soccer stadiums. I think I mentioned earlier that we have the Harry Potter experience. We have the secret recipe for the butterbeer. We make that in the UK. And then Guinness. Is anybody familiar with Guinness beer? Okay, of course, in college, right? So the Guinness Storehouse, we operate two facilities for them. One in Ireland, which is the main location, and that experience and do the food and beverage for this fantastic restaurant there. And then also in Maryland is another Guinness Storehouse for the US. And so we operate that for Guinness. So just some really unique jobs. So that's available for international. And that would be somebody, again, my cards are here. If you want me to connect you with somebody, I can do that.
But unfortunately, as far as these internships, there's no visa sponsorships for the internship, correct?
Only if you're with an agency that does it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there are 8 employment agencies specifically that will, if you're, depending on what the visa is, for incoming to the US, there's like H-2B visas and J-1 visas. And so we work with agencies that do all of that vetting, and then we hire from them. So that's, yeah. So, and then I wanted to share, open up for some general questions here, but this, and again, this is going to be housed on the PowerPoint that you'll all have access to, but these are some of the information, our destination's website, my contact information. Please connect with me if I can help in any way. And then our career site. And we try to get better and smarter at that. So when we put up our job postings, we're actually starting to hire now for next summer. So it's not too early if you think you would be interested in this to start poking around on the website and see what's out there. I actually was looking with one of the students for that S2L role, the one that would be between the junior and senior year. That's posted at Crater Lake National Park, which is up in Oregon. So
I was just going to say, one week in kind of advising Daniel on his thing, he got a little super eager, because Daniel's a super eager. And basically, most of the summer internship positions your people have told me are typically posted in January, end of January. Okay, so the first point is, you're not going to find a job when you start looking in April. You need to be looking at these jobs boards in January, February. And then Susan's advice of poking around is exactly what should happen. Daniel started applying for these positions, and he really didn't realize that he started doing that in November, and really a lot of the positions really weren't kind of what he needed for December, January. So it's really good to poke around, but when you start making a determination of someplace you want to go, you need to be serious, because as Susan said, someone may be contacting you right away. And if you're not sure, you're not doing them a favor or yourself a favor. So I encourage the poking around. I encourage the serious look in January and February. And if you don't, because if you want one of these jobs, getting it locked down in February would make your stress level go down as a student. You're like, got it all set up. So, and then the other thing I would say is that from the Daniel V experience, he had an opportunity as a graduate to look at both a 5-month and a 9-month internship. And he purposely chose a shorter one because he wasn't sure.
And not internship, actually,
And it wasn't
job.
an internship,
Yeah.
it was just one of the
Job.
supervisory positions. And then the other thing he thought about and learned about is that there are supervisory positions. And if you could be a sophomore and have spent the last 10 years, working in a thing, but supervisory positions are really legitimate positions to start out on. If you're a junior and you've been doing some like line management in a restaurant or been helping a front desk lead, you could apply for those positions. So don't be, the thing I told the class last year is that, when you read a job description, you're like, oh, most females say, oh, I can only do like 10% of this and I'm not going to apply. A lot of times males go, oh, I can only do 10% of this, I'm going to apply. So don't let the job description freak you out. Take that job description to one of your professors and say, do you think I'm like ready to do this? And they'll be honest with you. So anyways, and then you can't forget that the work at RKR, if you're working at RKR, that's work experience. That needs to go on your resume.
And Dr. Ben reminded me as well that those work hours, he said, that you would have with a company like Aramark or others in summer, those are going to count towards your required hours. So that's going to knock off another, at least 200 hours or more for that requirement. So think about that too. And yes, and there are multiple positions. So if you have prior experience, don't be afraid to apply for a supervisory role, because a lot of our international folks that are coming in from other countries they're going to fill more of some of the entry-level jobs, and that's what they're looking for. They also have the least amount of flexibility too. So again, the longer you can stay and start, the better chance you would have of a more senior position. But you just have to let us know what your availability is. So, and again, not to, say this too many times, but please use your advisors and Margaret or myself to support if we can and answer your questions. And you definitely would, I think it would be a tremendous experience for you if you want to give it a try. So
Questions for Susan? We've got 5 minutes. Come on, guys. Someone's got a question.
Hold on.
Hold on.
oh, we gotta get I should be throwing that at you.
So the countries, as you mentioned earlier, that you guys are international, like, are you guys morely based in Europe, or are you guys as well, like 1 or 2 countries in like Asia, for example, like maybe Japan, Tokyo, or Australia, New Zealand?
We have quite a presence in China, and one of my co-workers is over there right now serving in the Asian Games and in the athlete village. So we're serving 3 meals, actually more than 3 meals a day, to 20,000 athletes right now over in China. And so quite a presence in China, some in Japan. We actually just sold off a small division in Japan, a lot in South America and Central America, and then Europe. Europe is by far the largest, both mainly in Northern Europe, UK. So yes, that's kind of where we're concentrated. And there's other companies like ours that do that as well in internationally.
Okay.
Yes.
Based on his question a little bit, does the manager training program would affect international destination too, or just national wise?
Well, for the management, the A12 program, that is a North America program, and I probably didn't specify that. So that would be Mexico, Canada, US. And then internationally, it's slightly different. So I would just need to make sure you connected with the international group on, but they do hire college graduates. It's just a different kind of titled program for our international division, but we could connect you with that information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we got some.
Now they're coming.
What's about
So you have certain training programs from like 5-month, 9-month, 12-month. Can you specify how you train people for certain jobs at all?
So that's a great question. It depends on the role, but the sooner you can get in, the more onboarding there is. Sometimes if someone comes in what we'd call mid-season, which would be like maybe in June or July, it's going to be a very rapid onboarding because, we're already at peak occupancy, right? But there is, we have computer-based training that will take you through, the company information. Safety is a really big part of what we focus on, whether it's food safety or occupational safety. And so you'll go through safety training. And then you would have, I think probably you've heard of stand-up meetings, right? You're going to have those stand-up meetings with your shift leaders every day that, you're working, and then ongoing mentoring. And I think the one piece that we're hearing more and more from our employees is that they want ongoing training and development. So don't just put it at the front of the start of my job, but keep it going all the way through. And that's what we're working at being better at and developing. And I think the younger that you are, the more you want that. And so it's really, again, to be an employer of choice. That's what we're trying to step up to do to create more of that. And then give you a career path because, you need to know, it's only fair to you to know what your next steps are, right? And what you can do. So, any other question?
Yeah, and a question. For when you made the switch from owning a company and starting new with a new company at a lower level, what were some of the factors that you considered? And like, how did you convince like yourself to like that was a good idea?
Take that risk.
Yeah.
Remember when Margaret mentioned earlier about your risk profile, right? Like, what is your level of risk you can take? And it was an interesting time of my life because my husband was actually unemployed at the time that I made that decision. So it was, kind of scary, but I had a certain amount of confidence and really mentors that I'd had in my life that said, you can do this. And I think if you surround yourself with those type of people, but yeah, it was scary, and I think it was, other word I would use is humbling, that I didn't have to have this title, right, or whatever, but I just needed to make sure I had a regular paycheck and I had a plan of how I was going to grow my career, and be willing to step back and learn and be humble, I think are important traits that you need to have to be successful.
I call it the know thyself. Remember, I talked about what grade would you give yourself and how much you like yourself? If it's a C or D right now, start working towards the B. Okay. We got one more question here. I think Susan's going to be here after,
Yeah,
and then
I
we got to
think
let
so.
you guys go. Hold on. Ready?
Okay.
Hey, so I do see that you have a lodging internship here that I'm just kind of curious because all of these are mostly out of states. So if we do this one, how do we know about like the housing, and do we have a place that we can check it like about the housing options?
That's a great question. We are working now, and some locations have videos created to show you what the housing looks like. If it's not available, then you can check with the talent acquisition person that you would talk to in terms of an interview to share with you what the housing situation is. If it's like 2 to a room, or if you have your own room, things like that. Is that what you're asking?
Like, so do all of the internships, they all have the housing options, or is it just that will be dependent on what
The official internship program will always have housing included. And then it depends on the location, what a stipend there is for travel to get there. And then if you're doing what Daniel did, then again, that would depend on, but if you're in a park, you're going to have housing. We never require that you have to go find something outside and commute all the way in. You're going to have housing in the park. Yep. You're welcome.
Archie.
Did you learn something? Yeah, I did too. Please help me thank Susan Liston for being with us today.